Someone you love stops talking to you. No yelling, no explanation, just silence. And somehow that silence hurts more than any argument ever could. Have you ever wondered why? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's a weapon. And the scariest part is, most people who use it don't even think of it as manipulation. They think of it as just needing space. But your brain knows better. Your brain reacts to silence the exact same way it reacts to physical pain. Let that sink in for a second. Being ignored by someone you're emotionally attached to activates the same regions in your brain as a broken bone. Not emotionally similar. Literally, neurologically similar. So when someone goes cold on you and you feel like you're spiraling, panicking, replaying every text you sent, checking if they've read your message for the 5th time in 10 minutes, you're not being too sensitive. You're having a pain response. A real one. So why would anyone do this to another human being on purpose? To understand that, we need to go back to something almost every kid learns by accident. Picture a toddler who wants a toy from another kid. He doesn't have the words to negotiate, so he does the next best thing. He takes it, and if the other kid cries, he stops. If the other kid doesn't react, he keeps the toy. That's it. That's the entire blueprint. We learn very early that withdrawal changes behavior, and some people never stop using that blueprint. They just get better at hiding it. Here's where it gets interesting. There are actually 2 completely different reasons someone might go silent, and they look almost identical from the outside. The first is what psychologists call a flooding response. Some people, when overwhelmed emotionally, genuinely shut down. Their nervous system hits a wall. They're not punishing you, they're drowning, and silence is the only way they know how to keep their head above water. This kind of silence usually comes with guilt afterward, an apology, an explanation, even if it's late. But the second kind is different. This one is intentional, even if it's not fully conscious. It's used to create anxiety in you so that you chase, apologize, or comply just to make the discomfort stop. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This second kind of silence is often most common in people who otherwise seem calm, mature, and completely in control. Because that's exactly what makes it effective. It doesn't look like anger, it looks like restraint. And restraint is hard to argue with. Think about the last time someone gave you the silent treatment. Did you find yourself apologizing for something you weren't even sure you did wrong? That's not a coincidence. That's the entire mechanism working exactly as designed. Here's how it actually plays out step by step, and you've probably lived through at least one version of this without realizing what was happening. Step 1. Something happens. A disagreement, a comment, a boundary you set. Something small, usually smaller than the reaction that follows. Step 2, instead of addressing it, the other person goes quiet. Not calm quiet, cold quiet. Short answers, no eye contact, doors that used to stay open suddenly closed. Step 3, and this is where most people get caught. Your brain, desperate to close the open loop, starts filling in the silence with your own guesses. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad? Should I have not brought that up? Notice something. They haven't said a single word, and you're already building their entire argument for them in your own head against yourself. Step 4, you reach out, you apologize, sometimes for things you didn't even do. Not because you're weak, because unresolved social pain is genuinely unbearable to the human brain. We are wired for connection at a survival level. Being cut off, even briefly, feels like danger. Step 5, the silence ends, usually right after you've given in, which quietly teaches your nervous system a lesson it will remember. Comply, and the pain stops. Do that enough times, and you don't even need words anymore. A certain look, a certain tone of fine, a door closing a little harder than usual, your body reacts before your mind even catches up, because it's been trained to. Now, here's a question worth sitting with. If silence can be trained into a weapon, can it also be recognized and diffused? Yes, but not the way most advice tells you to. Most people are told to just give them space or wait it out. That advice works fine for genuine emotional flooding. But if the silence is being used as leverage, waiting it out quietly rewards the exact behavior you want to stop. The real shift isn't in what you say, it's in what you stop doing. Stop performing anxiety. Stop the string of, "Are you okay?" texts. Stop rehearsing apologies for things that were never actually your fault. Not because you don't care, but because chasing is the fuel this entire cycle runs on. Remove the fuel and the fire has nothing left to feed on. Instead, stay calm, stay present, and say one honest sentence. Something like, "I'm here when you're ready to talk." Then, and this is the hard part, actually live your life. Not coldly, not as a power move, just normally. Because the moment silence stops producing a reaction, it stops being useful as a tool. This single shift does something powerful. It separates people who are genuinely overwhelmed from people who are using silence for control. The person who's flooded will come back on their own, usually with an explanation. The person who was using silence as leverage will often escalate first because the tool stopped working and they don't yet have another one. Neither of those reactions makes you responsible for fixing them. It just gives you information. And information is the one thing this entire dynamic tries to keep you from having. Here's what nobody tells you about the silent treatment. It was never really about the silence, it was about who breaks first. And the moment you stop needing to be the one who breaks first, you take back something that silence was never supposed to be able to take from you in the first place. Your voice, even when nobody's using theirs.